Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual break room. I'm Emma Tozer, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. We're so excited to bring you another session of the virtual break room, which we are broadcasting on Facebook Live and on our teleconferencing platform, BlueJeans. We have strived to use this online engagement tool as a way to bring the community useful information about resources and services during the COVID-19 pandemic. And today, I'm really excited to welcome the team from Union City's Youth and Family Services. YFS is housed within the city government and provides youth violence prevention and intervention services to those in need in our community. These services include counseling, employment help, case management, street outreach, and crisis intervention. But as we are going to hear from the team today, YFS really does all of that and so much more for the community. If you're new to the virtual break room, we encourage everyone to ask questions for the YFS team, either in the comments section of the Facebook Live video or in the chat feature of the BlueJeans platform. And you can go ahead and drop your comments in there, and when I see them, I'll get them answered live. So today, we're going to be talking with the YFS team about the work that they do and the services that they offer. But first, I'm going to turn it over to the team to go ahead and introduce themselves. So I'll go and hand it off to Pedro.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for having us on, and thank those that are joining us today. I'm really excited for you to meet the team and hear about all the good work that we're doing. My name is Pedro Naranjo, and I'm the program manager for Youth and Family Services. My job is to oversee the administrative and programmatic operations. A little about myself. I've been with the organization now for a year and a half. So very happy to be here. I have over 20 years of experience working in the social service field in a variety of different settings, including nonprofits, academia, and government. And prior to coming to the city, I worked with Alameda County. The last 9 years were with Healthcare Services Agency, where I served as the executive director of the Reach Action Youth Center, which serves youth ages 11 to 24 through a wraparound approach. Really happy about the work that we did there. One of the things that I was most proud of was in leading a community participatory process that led to the design of the facility as well as the programs and services. And I'm bilingual. I love to collaborate with other folks, and I have a beautiful wife and two beautiful daughters at home that keep me busy when I'm at work. Thank you.
Okay, and David, you want to go next?
Yes, my name is David Sanyana. I'm a street outreach worker. I've been here with Youth and Family Services for about 5 years. I'm very familiar with the Union City area. I grew up in the Fairway Park neighborhood in Hayward. It's really right next to Dakota neighborhood, and I went to the New Haven Unified School District. I went to Hillview Crest Elementary School, I went to Bernard White Middle School, and I went to James Logan High School. Unfortunately, in my early adolescent years, I had setbacks, I had run-ins with the law, challenges growing up with the lack of guidance, ended up on different levels of probation. But through the help of counselors in the school district, counselors in a substance use disorder treatment setting, and with the help of mentors, they put me back on a right path. And now I feel that I owe a debt to other youth to actually help them through the process of counseling, mentoring, and giving them guidance. So that's a little bit about me, what's unique to me. So I'm very familiar with the Union City area. Thank you so much for just giving us this opportunity to share a little bit about ourselves.
My name is Adrian Valadez, and I'm the intervention counselor here with our program. I've been with our program for 11 years, and I provide individual and family counseling, both at our clinic and also at some of the school sites here in the New Haven Unified School District. I was raised in Union City, so it's an honor to be able to give back to my community. I'm fluent in Spanish, which I found is a great asset working with the Spanish-speaking community, because counseling could be a challenging thing to participate in, but when you have it in your own language, it becomes a little easier. Also, throughout my years, I have been able to engage with youth that maybe have been mandated to participate in services, and I also have a non-judgmental approach to the way that I provide services. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Madrid. I'm a youth outreach worker as well. And I got about 18 years experience in the social work field, working with at-risk youth, incarcerated youth, homeless youth, different capacities over the years. I've been fortunate enough to be with Union City for the past 6 years. And I bring a lot to the table as far as experience, and just life experiences is the main thing that's helped me the most over the years. Just being able to relate to the young people that we serve. And like Adrian said, not judging folks, meeting youth where they're at. And I don't know, I can't relate to everything that these young people are going to, but I have a heart for it. I have a heart for the young people, and I want to understand. And to me, that's the beginning of change, is getting them to understand that, they're going through some hardships, they're going through some things, but they're not the only ones that are going through it. And, through life experience as well, we're able to speak to a lot of those issues. And I'm originally from San Jose, from East San Jose. I was with the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force out there in San Jose. Happily married, going on 15 years next month. In a couple months, 15 years and 3 beautiful children. So.
Hi, my name is Olivia Lobos, and I'm the admin assistant for YFS. I'm a longtime UC resident and a Logan, Bernard, and Dakota alum. I handle all of the office work reports, that kind of stuff. And it's nice to be able to give back to the neighborhood where I grew up, because I grew up in Dakota. And I'm also fluent in Spanish, so like Adrian, it's good to be able to work with your community.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Sergio Bundis. I'm a case manager here with the city. Started back in 2009 when the program expanded into the program for the youth violence intervention. And so before that, I worked about 7 years out in San Leandro, an organization called Girls Inc. And so just working with different aspects of the community kind of allowed me to be recruited for this program. And so what I love about the job is that a case manager just connects people to resources. But what I've learned over the years is that people don't buy into the services, they buy into the person. So for me, a lot of times it's allowed me to really build relationships with people in the community. So it's at the point now where I don't look at organizations, I just look at people that I work with over the years. So that way there's a trust to connect the youth when they come to us. Because that's really what it is. We want to be there when they need us and be able to connect them to somebody else that values the same thing about helping them out. And so that's pretty much it about me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Bachmann. I am the clinical supervisor with YFS. I'm relatively new to the team. I've been there just about 8 months now. And I provide individual and group supervision and consultation. I participate in some program development, and I also provide individual and family counseling and direct services to clients. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been licensed for about 14 years. And my background, I've worked as a social worker and therapist, always focused on working with children and families, at-risk youth. And my background is also in specializing kind of in abuse and neglect. I have 20 years of experience working with child welfare with the county of Alameda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashil Swami. I'm a case manager with Youth and Family Services. I've been on board for a whole 3 months, so I'm fairly new, like Lisa. So I've been in the mental health field for a little over 20 years now. I started out in a developmental day program, then went to an inpatient acute psych facility in Fremont, and then most recently I came from Abode Services, and I was there for about 11 years doing chronically homeless outreach, permanent supportive housing, and every other position that's there. So I grew up here in Union City. I went to Pioneer Elementary, Alvarado Middle, James Logan, and to El Rancho Verde that's, I think, Connolly now. So I'm a Union City native, and I'm glad to be back, giving back to the community. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was a really good way to get to know you before we dive into our questions. So I'm just going to get started with kind of a question about the background of YFS. So I was hoping you guys could tell me what is the history of YFS? How was it started and why?
Well, I can share a little bit about that history. Ideally, you're looking back at maybe around 2006, 2008. It's like an 18-month period where there were about roughly maybe 6 or 7 youth homicides who lost their life anywhere from the age of 13 to maybe 24. And so that started the community getting involved. And by community involvement, we're talking about organizations like FAJ, Chris Cara, Mary Schrar from CORE, and Jaime from Centro de Servicios, and a lot of the teachers and community members in the school district, some of the churches. And so basically they started finding and basically going to City Hall and saying, look, we need a program to help these youth that are dying in our streets. And from there, they tried to pass Measure KK, I think, back then. It failed. It was just a youth-funded program. But later on, they started with a Measure UU a few years later. And so when they lumped that with police and fire funding, that's when the community passed it. And they did that for like 10 years. And then after that, it was Measure QQ. But at the core of it was basically the community wanted the city to do something. And then that's how I found out about the program. And that's something that ended up being is the city leaders looked into what were some evidence-based programs out there. So they decided on the Boston Ceasefire model. And so what that involved was a combination of what you might hear now as in other cities in the Bay Area that are trying to use that to deal with their violence. It might say things like community meetings. And really what it is, it's you're identifying youth from the law enforcement side who are those that are involved in committing some of the crimes. Because based on the data, and what made it evidence-based was that 5% of the population is involved for 95% of the crime. So that's why you have to really have this narrow focus on who those individuals are. And so our role was basically be a service provider. So when we went to these community organizations, it was law enforcement saying their message to the youth that were there, that we're giving you opportunity to get involved with these services, make a change. However, if you continue to engage in the same behavior and violence in the community, then we will do our job. And so this was an opportunity for community members to get involved. And for what that looked like for us is that some of the things that came out of those meetings was that youth needed employment. They needed education. A lot of them started failing out of school at 10th grade. And so that started a cycle where they just get more and more further into the streets and more time out there. And so we relied on a lot of these organizations that I mentioned in the beginning to help us with GED tutoring, connection with services. Some of them even paid for the GED testing because we were so new at the time that we didn't have a lot of resources and we had to pull in the community. And so I would say if I had to make a snapshot picture of what we were focused on that time, we're looking at youth that were 19 years old, that did not graduate high school, have been arrested 2 to 7 times, and had about 2 felonies on their record. So this was our clientele at the beginning and what we focused on. And so really the need was that we wanted to make a change. We wanted to stop violence in the community, but we wanted to make sure it wasn't just the police saying these things. It wasn't just the city saying these things, but the community really being involved. And I think when you have community involvement and everybody finds a way to support the youth, you have some good results like we did.
Thanks, Sergio. I'm going to kind of turn a little bit towards present day. You know, I know that a lot of services in the government have had to pivot during the pandemic, and I know YFS is no different. So I was hoping that you guys could talk a little bit about that. How has YFS pivoted during the pandemic? Are there things that you're doing now that you didn't do before, or the other way around?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. And I'm actually going to ask a few of my colleagues to jump in because everybody really has been involved in supporting the community throughout these last 7 months. They've been very hard months, as you know, different. And during the onset of the shelter in place, the city asked us to participate in the Emergency Operations Center, which is charged with determining the response of the city to various needs associated with a disaster or with a situation like this. So the team, actually, one of our responsibilities with that committee was to provide information regarding the needs that we were seeing out there as a result of COVID, but also the resources that were available to various community members. So we all contacted various community-based organizations, and we're able to learn a lot from that and take that information to the Emergency Operations Center meetings. As a result of that, we were able to support food distribution efforts. We were hearing from our CBO partners that during those early days, it was really hard to come by masks, PPE, so we were able to provide those to folks that were out there providing very essential services to the community. And then also we were involved in communication efforts. So I'll go ahead and kick it over to Sergio to talk a little bit about his involvement with the Joint Information Committee. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean that was a very interesting time because we basically, I think the challenging part of that time was really just not knowing what was happening. We just know we were shut down, and at that time, like Pedro said, the city had a group together, and my role was to help out with the community information and getting that stuff out. So part of the beginning was we need to find out what are the needs that the community needs. So out there, we did a survey. We found out that they needed food, they needed access to money. It was just a lot of things that were coming out. So initially, we started working on this, just gathering whatever resources available, because it wasn't the traditional model in the past where it's like, here goes a resource guide, go see so-and-so, because a lot of the people we were dependent on in the community had shut down, and it was weird because they were trying to figure stuff out. So in the very beginning, we had to find out who was still passing out food. And at that time, it was Patty from the Daily Bowl, Central passing out their food. So really, they got flooded with just a lot of people, not just in Union City, but the Tri-City area. So that kind of gave us a need. Like, look, they can't feed the people that normally depend on this. So we need to find a way of reaching out to other organizations, find out what they need. Like Pedro said, PPE was a very big issue. So our role was like, if we can provide you this, can you reopen? Are you thinking, is that one of your barriers? And so we really just did a lot of canvassing with the community, getting the information out. And then the issue became housing. So we had a lot of information coming from the state that we had to kind of summarize and get the information out. And that kind of led to the development of the coronavirus website that's on the city. And that allowed us to just filter a lot of information. So I think I love what the city did in that respect, because one of the biggest complaints that we get as city employees is like, what are you doing? You're not doing enough. So I say, look, this is what we're doing day by day, and we're putting it all out there. So that way you're aware, you can go somewhere directly to get factual information and get in contact with these organizations.
We were also very concerned about how COVID was impacting our young people, and so we were invited by Alameda County to participate in the COVID-19 Youth Advisory Committee, And David Madrid was actually our liaison with that group. So David, can you say a little bit about your involvement with that?
Yeah, so Alameda County Public Health, they had this COVID-19 Youth Communications Advisory Committee, and there was about 15 participants. There were CBOs from all over Alameda County, Eden Youth Center, Oakland Vice Mayor's Office, Youth Uprising, and of course, we were involved with that as well. And what they were finding that there was youth throughout the county, ages 13 to 35, were not just contracting, but also, just not taking it serious. We're not wearing a mask. So they were picking our brains of how do we reach the young people. And so what came out of that was a different campaigns of how to reach young people. I know there were some small grants that went out to some organizations working with young people. They're just getting the word out. But, I thought it was really telling and important that, we were at that table as experts in the game of just reaching young people. And that's I was really excited to be a part of that, and also knowing that our input held weight. We were representing South Alameda County in those meetings.
And I would say that the COVID really shifted the way we deliver our services. So with that, I would like Lisa to say a little bit about how that's impacted our work.
Okay, yeah. So when the shelter in place was issued, there was a hard shift for everybody because obviously we were working from home. All of our clients were obviously at home also. So we went from providing all of our services in person to figuring out ways to provide the same services over virtual means. So we had to do a lot of research to find video platforms that were private and that were HIPAA compliant. So it involved a lot of research and communication with other agencies, and so we did finally develop. We did come up with a couple different platforms to use. Right now, we're using Teams, Microsoft Teams, and at the beginning, trying to phase that in was a little challenging for all of us, especially those that are like me, that are tech challenged. But we're finally 6-7 months later. Now I think that we're all using it pretty seamlessly. And part of the challenge at the beginning too was connecting with our clients. There was a lot of fear, I think, out in the community, uncertainty, and some of the services that we were providing might not have been kind of their priority, and so it was kind of difficult perhaps to engage with some folks because they had other priorities. And so there was a lot of spending a lot of time just kind of checking in and seeing how people were doing and kind of reassessing their needs, because the services that we're providing, like traditional services, kind of weren't their greatest need at the time. So that was part of how we shifted to. And then just in terms of like formalities, coming up with procedures and ways of messaging, staff and our clients about kind of the new way we were doing business, and assuring them that, we were still providing them the services that they had signed up for, but in this different way. So that was kind of how we kind of shifted to providing services, and we're continuing to provide services in that way now, still over telehealth.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I also served on the Joint Information Center with Sergio, so I can definitely say that the insight from YFS was really, really crucial in understanding the needs of the community. Okay, so kind of going off of that, as a follow-up question, do you anticipate YFS's services changing in the long term as a result of the pandemic? Are there things that you will still be doing now from the pandemic?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that we're anticipating a greater need, to be honest with you. This COVID-19 has impacted people in many, many different ways. You heard some of the things earlier from Sergio around food and housing. relationships, education, it's across the board. Some of it we're still learning about, and we're going to continue to learn about the consequences and impacts, I think, for months and years to come. So the need definitely is there. We've been seeing an influx of referrals coming to our office as well, which is indicative of that. What we have learned from this experience is that in some ways our approach has been validated. I think Sergio spoke to it earlier. Having trust, we have to continue to do the things that are working. Having the trust of the community, continuing to build relationship with the community is paramount. Without that, we can have services, but people are not going to use them if they don't know you, they don't trust you. So that's really important. Also, very equally important is working in partnership, being a good partner and identifying partners who are aligned with a similar vision, that have similar goals is really important. So we're going to continue to do that. COVID taught us that some communities are affected more than others, right? So we have to be mindful of that. We have to use data to drive our interventions. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to do that even more. And then I would say lastly, in terms of the future, we just have to continue to be nimble, be able to be nimble and flexible to address the various needs that the community is having so that we can continue to evolve. And as you've heard from the team, we have so many different skills and backgrounds and experiences that we really are positioned to be able to provide different types of support to the community as we continue to learn about how COVID is impacting our youth and families.
Thanks, Pedro. I'm going to shift now to a question about kind of specific question about the services that YFS provides. Is YFS providing services to homeless, specifically homeless youth, or do you have plans to do so in the future?
I can go ahead and answer that. So, YFS, the target focus is not actually doing homeless encampments or individuals that are chronically homeless, but we do provide support to homeless youth and families. So, for example, if they were to come in and say that, they're at risk of losing housing, then we would provide some sort of support in finding, any type of housing support, rental assistance through 211, anything of that nature pertaining to the kids or their families. We are looking at expanding some of the service to the chronically homeless as the needs grow, especially when it comes to COVID. As you guys know, there's a bunch of COVID-19 shelters in the area, and there's a lot of individuals and businesses that have been affected by COVID. So as a result of that, we're seeing, the homeless population grow even more than what it was prior to the pandemic. So I think once the COVID shelters are shut down, we're going to start to see a lot more people coming into the area from those COVID shelters that are both in Newark and Hayward and in Fremont. So I think we're looking at ways to provide some support in those areas.
Thanks, Sushil. My next question is, how are youth referred to your services? Are you working with other organizations to identify those individuals or families who would benefit from YFS? I remember, I think David had mentioned New Haven partnerships, so I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so youth and their families can be referred to our program in a couple ways. They themselves can actually contact us and reach out about our services. We will be providing our contact information later on during this broadcast. And like you mentioned, Emma, we also have partnerships with different agencies and programs. We partner up with the New Haven Unified School District, the Union City Family Center, Alameda County Probation Department, and also with the Union City Police Department. So those agencies basically identify youth or families that they want to refer to our program, and then after they're referred to us, then we make the connection with the youth and their families, provide our services. Thank you.
My next question is geared more towards outreach. So I've heard a couple members of the team often say that an outreach worker is actually out walking the streets So I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more about what it means to be an outreach worker, and really how is that different from being a case manager or a counselor, or the other roles in YFS.
Okay, great. So our street outreach component is actually comprised of three components, which we have a street outreach mentoring program that runs 4 to 6 months long, depending on the level of need the student or youth needs. We actually have a diversion program, which is an alternative to suspension model in New Haven Unified School District. Then we actually have our street outreach, which is marketing and promotion within the communities of Union City, where we actually identify hot spots, we identify certain street corners, we engage youth at Kennedy Park. We sometimes engage youth just kicking it at the parks. Sometimes they're smoking, sometimes they're drinking, and try to divert them from doing that and actually try to provide them with education. Per se, I'm a certified substance use disorder counselor. So my main goal is to actually use a harm reduction approach. So when traditional counseling hits a wall where the youth feels that he or she cannot benefit from counseling, we try to engage them in street outreach. And the goal for B to essentially bring them on the street outreach mentoring program, where we meet with them, provide them with guidance and direction, motivational coaching, and we meet with them for 4 to 6 months. We work on a street outreach intervention action plan. We do individual sessions with them, school site visits, home visits, and meet them where they're at. The goal is to help them make calculated decisions, and to before making a choice or a decision, to assess the situation at hand, where they can make the best decision.
I would just add, Dave explained it well, perfectly. I would just say, we complement the agency. We like Dave mentioned, we complement folks to meet them where they're at. Maybe they're not ready for certain services, so we'll hang in there, develop those relationships, and then hopefully when they're ready, we'll get them plugged in where they need to be.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. My next question is, what makes YFS unique? And kind of a follow-up to that, how does YFS measure its success?
Yeah, I can jump in here. To me, as this team, this team is very unique, as you're all hearing and learning about. There's all the different things that we do. So the fact that we have so much history here in Union City, but not just in Union City, in the Tri-City area, I think is very unique. The fact that we work so closely, and actually we prioritize work with youth and families who are struggling, who are not doing well, or who are impacted disproportionately by poor educational outcomes, poor health outcomes. The fact that we are well versed and experienced in working with justice system involved youth, and the collaboration with nation. I think all those things, make us a very unique and special group. As far as like how we measure success, those relationships again. The fact that we're seeing now generations of people that are coming back saying, "Hey, you helped me. Now you're helping you helped my son." And now we're getting to a point where people are saying, you're helping our grandkids. I think that's huge. That's a sign of success. As far as evaluation wise, we measure 3 questions. One of the things that we track is like how much we do of something, right? How many people are we serving? How many sessions are we providing? Where are people coming from? So we track that. We also want to make sure that we're tracking how well we're doing our work, and making sure that our clients are satisfied, that they're benefiting from our services. The data shows, research shows that one of the most significant things that makes a difference in our work is the client provider relationship, right? So to be able to hear back from the client about how we're doing, we do that through administering various tools that provide us feedback about how the client is doing, but also how we're doing our relationship with the client and what's working and what's not working. And the third question was a very important question is like, is anybody better off? Here's what we're looking at: program impact. We're looking to see if we're working with system involved youth, justice involved youth, are we helping them not go back to juvenile hall? Are we helping them not go back to jail? If we're working with kids at schools, are we helping them increase their attendance at school? Are we helping them improve their grades and graduate from high school? Are we helping young people get employed? So those are some of the indicators that we look at. And then very importantly to us is ensuring that supporting public safety efforts, that violence in our community, those rates continue to go down. So so those are some of the ways in which we measure our success.
And I have one more question from me, and we do have a question that came in as well. So I'll ask that one a little bit later. So my last question, and just for some context for the audience first, a few weeks ago, I shadowed Sergio to talk with him about YFS and to kind of see firsthand the work that they do. And when I was shadowing Sergio, he said something that I wanted to follow up on. He said, violence doesn't happen overnight. It's the long-term issues, and it only gets magnified during hard times. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what those long-term issues are, and as an organization, how does YFS approach those issues?
Yeah, I think for me, when I said that to you, I was just thinking about how the Ceasefire program itself, it originated in Boston, and what happened with them is that there was a period where they stopped from 2000 to 2007. And during that same time, some of the same issues started coming up again, where you had homicide, gun-related charges, and those issues. When I look at the underlying issues of issues being magnified, they relate around three things. It's education, employment, and empathy. So what that means is that when we first came on board, it was hard for us helping youth get jobs because during that time we were coming into the Great Recession. So we essentially had people that had master's degrees that were competing jobs that kids in high school were competing for, like the McDonald's, the Safeway, just other entry-level positions. And so that pushed a lot of the youth out. And so what I see right now, the challenge with COVID is that you still have a lot of families that are having a hard time even getting back into the workforce if those opportunities are around. And so I think for us, how we're trying to look at these issues is that we have to prepare our youth to see that there's value right now in preparing themselves. So right now, if you are engaged in high school, it's important for you to complete high school. If not, at least complete as many credits as you can. So that way, when you do get pushed out of school, whether you aged out or whatever reason, we can connect it with the adult school lot here to help you finish that up. Or if you're already out of high school, then let's start looking at some community college opportunities to help you get into a trade or learn something. Or if you don't want to do any of those things, let's get you into a program like Cypress Mandela, which is 4 months pre-apprenticeship training. So that way, when we start coming out of this COVID pandemic, you're more valuable in that space where you are more employable. You have these opportunities. But here's the problem. The problem is that when you as a youth and your parents aren't able to work and you start feeling the pressure, and I think right now, if I put it in a relatable context, is that the demographics of Union City have changed over the years since 2009. And I think when the census data comes out, we will see that. In between that, you've had prices that have gone up. So a lot of families got pushed out. The families that still remain, and a lot of the families that are renters, they're going to have the issue of dealing with evictions and all these other challenges that come with that. So if you're a youth in this household and your family is not working right now and they're standing in the food line, they're asking for whatever help they can get, you start getting tempted by other ways to make money. And as I look at it, get involved in the underground economy. And this is where there's a lot of issues that come from that, because now you may get involved with law enforcement, you may get arrested, you may go into the prison. And so just for something to provide for your family. And so I think these underlying issues are the things that we're dealing with. So the way we try to deal with that is we're reaching out to employers that are willing to hire some of our youth. We're particularly looking for those that are willing to take on youth 14 to 15, because I think that's a big group right now that a lot of employers are not really looking to hire and have challenges with. But these are the ones that are most eager to get the help. Because if you're able to get a 14 and a 15-year-old an opportunity to work, even something as little as 10 hours a week, more than likely they're going to engaged with school. More than likely they're going to start doing more positive things in their life. And so from us, we're very empathetic in their situation, and we try to look at it from their lens. In all honesty, a lot of the staff we have here have been in those same situations where we had to make those decisions. And so that perspective, I think, is what is helping us find creative ways to deal with this during this time. But to answer your question, it comes down to employment, it comes down to education, and really empathy. Because I think the goal and how I measure success over these years is this client that I'm working with, can I get in the position where they make more money than I do? Can I get them in a position for them to buy a house? Can I get in a position where they feel proud raising their kids and their kids look up to them? And once they get to that space, that's how I measure success. Because the clients that we help to become productive citizens, guess what? They got a lot of friends that are still involved in the same issues. So either they'll send them back to us to help out, or they'll talk to them to get more help. And the reality is that's something that we can never do, no matter how much experience, no matter how much stuff we do. But by helping somebody, they're able to pass on that message. And I think what made Union City a unique position is that the city is funding this program. The residents have voted for this. There isn't another program like this. A lot of times cities will get this money, they'll give it to these CBOs, and guess what? These CBOs are fighting for the same pot of money and not unified and really helping the community. So I think that's what makes us unique. Like David said earlier, that's what makes us credible in this area. And also is what's kept a lot of our staff here because of that very reason. So that's when I was thinking about that, because my concern is that if YFS isn't around, you're going to have this gap. And with that gap, other people are going to step up, the school district, other community organizations to do this. But what makes us different is that when there is an act of violence in the community, we have to go respond to the emergency rooms. We have to go try to talk to the youth that we have a relationship with to stop from retaliating, to give us time to operate, to find out how we can help and diffuse the situation. We can buy time. That's one thing that I don't think nobody else can do. And the only way we can do that is because we do these other services to build that relationship, to build that trust. And I think that's what we're going to continue to do.
Thank you. That was a really well thought out answer, I think, and a really good segue into the question from the audience, which is about employment help. Vivian dropped in the chat and was asking if you advertise jobs in the local area in Union City. So maybe if you could just say a few more words about what employment help you provide at YFS.
That's a great question for your case managers to answer, Sushil, as our employment coordinator, and then anything that anyone else may want to add.
Right now, we do not advertise the jobs. What we do is we work with the youth, and then we try to find employment opportunities that are out there in the community. What I do is I've created a database for employers who are looking for people to hire, especially youth. So that's basically how we get our youth connected with jobs here in Union City or in the Tri-City area. Basically just check in with them and see exactly what they're looking for, type of employment, and then go from there and try to do some research. But if there is an opportunity, there's been people who have reached out and, they mentioned that they've had positions open, or other employers will talk to other employers and they'll reach out. So that's how we do it.
Got it. Thank you. And that's all of the questions that I have, and that it looks like we don't have any more questions from the audience. I was hoping as we wrap up, for people who are interested in reaching out to you guys, what would be the best way? I think, Lydia, you had given a phone number earlier. If we could, just for people who are now tuning in, can you give a good contact?
You can actually call us at the main line, which is 510-675-5617. Again, that's 510-675-5617. Or you can email us at yfs@unioncity.org. It's pretty short. Again, the email is yfs@unioncity.org. And we can respond to you from those.
Awesome. And I just put that in the chat too so that people can see that as well.
Emma, can I just say one more last thing?
For sure, yeah.
Just as we're ending, I want to thank you for giving us this time, and for the folks that have tuned in. And feel free to share the links to other folks so that they hear more about what we do. And I just want to extend my gratitude to the Union City community for supporting this program for so many years through the use of our public funds. Our funding comes partially from the city, and also we are able to generate some funding through Alameda County Probation, who funds our program with about $500,000 projected for next year. So the support that we're getting from the city is really, really important. The tax measure that Sergio mentioned earlier, QQ, is getting ready to sunset in spring of next year. But right now, we are all working very hard to diversify our funding and find different ways to continue to support and continue the very important services that we're providing for the city, but also the Tri-City community. So again, I just want to thank everybody on the call. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, and thank you, Union City.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for the whole team coming. It's awesome that we got to learn about all of you and all of the work that you're doing. I know I definitely learned a lot about the work that you do today. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. I do want to say that if you are watching this later, and because we're going to put the recording online, and you think of questions that you want to ask for YFS, please send your questions either to yfs@unioncity.org, or you can send them to me at communications@unioncity.org. And that's all for today. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.